Hi, welcome who is not part of this program, which most of you are. Welcome to the DAF Struttura. We are very happy to be here tonight. And we're gonna talk a little bit about the work that I do within the work we started now together. And also in between introduce a few performance pieces by the students. And we will sort of smoothly move from this lecture into an open performance space.
So maybe you can tell us about the most recent performance project and why it was called Mass.
I founded my name is Yael Salomonowitz, I live in Berlin. I founded the performance agency in the spring of 2017. I myself have a background in theater and film and performing arts. There's a very wide selection of images of performance works that we've done in Berlin running on this screen, so you can just watch that. I founded the agency out of a necessity to define something. I was longing for a space, for a more emotional space within the arts, for a space in which I connect artists of all the different fields to these performative happenings. And the first trilogy that I conceived of was a trilogy called Mass 1, 2, 3, a trilogy of events where I invited artists of all the different fields to come together to these performative happenings where I guide the audience sort of through a movement of space by the change of light and sound. And so there are different performance moments, formal moments of performance, and the audience is sort of guided through a space that feels very open and loose, but there's actually a dramaturgy to that evening, so the audience sort of moves through the dramaturgical arc of performance works, which leads to the fact that after a while when you see something that you're not quite sure if it, because nothing is announced so clearly, things start looking like a performance and start feeling like one. And what we're investigating within the agency is really those lines between, so it sounds, it's full of pathos to say that, but like sort of the lines between reality and performance and what can happen in between those spheres. And then I conceived of this trilogy and was very informed by fluxes, and I asked a gallerist, Campus of Portico Lopez, if I can do it in their courtyard, in their gallery. And they said, of course you can do that, but we took over a Fluxus archive of 3,000 works, which is the archive that you see on these images here, with a Dorothy Yanola piano, a Dani Mishlorin piece in the back. There's 3,000 works in this archivio. The archivio Cons moved to Berlin only a year earlier, and it is the collection of a guy called Francesco Cons. He was living in Italy all his life, and he collected fluxus, concrete poetry, sound poetry, Gobona, Zach, over 30 years. And he first lived outside of Asolo, where he rented the Palazzo Bagnoli, it was called. It was a building of Palazzo he rented, and he invited artists, fluxus artists, Viennese actionists to come there and make works with him. And the collection houses more than 60 pianos, 6,000 editions, works created by over 150 artists. So when I started the performance agency, what I wanted to do, the Mass was very informed by Fluxus, and then I asked this gallerist, can I do it in your court? And he said, no, come to the archivio and do it there. So sort of two things came together, which extrapolated, and yeah, had an amazing response.
When you say Mass, what are you referring to?
Well, the Mass was sort of, for me, always a religious Mass, and it's sort of emotional space, but also the Mass, like, of everyone coming together. A Mass, of course, also just a mess, a chaos, yeah.
And how did you invite artists, and how do you work with different elements of what the agency does?
There's like sort of two different things. The agency is its own entity, and then there's also the work with the archivio. When I work with the archivio, always move away from a work, from an object, from an artist, from a theme that comes quite naturally, and that sort of, and then I propose a question, because when I first entered the Archivio, I didn't know how to approach all of that. I mean, you come into an archive of 3,000 pieces, you don't know how to, you cannot encompass it, you cannot summarize it, you cannot. So something kind of quite naturally came to me. So the first Mass, we took the archive like an oyster. So we were cruising the archive. We were just, there. And Paolo Tosnagel did a sound piece with sounds of the archive, and then the audience was moving through a dance piece into a sound collage, into a text piece, into a cinema space outside of that big, vast outside space that you see there. The second Mass was the body for me, because it was the body also in the trilogy, the Mass 2, and that was called The Topography of Chance, which is a book by Daniel Spörri, in which at a random moment in time he lists the object on his table, and from these objects he sends them to Emmett Williams, Robert Filou, Dieter Roth, and Topo, and they very like star-shaped. They built this like chain of association. So it can be salt shaker bought at Monoprix for 2 francs. They send it to Dieter Roth, and Dieter Roth says, salt was born in the 3rd century. And then like he sends it to Emmett Williams, and Emmett Williams says, my mother always used too much salt in her chicken soup. So it goes like very associatively in this chain. And Daniel Spörri gave me this book in a moment of time. Actually at Mass 1, when I started the project, I had an accident 2 days before, so I myself wasn't there. And I was directing the event from the hospital. And I remembered that book when I was lying there. I remembered this book that he gave me, and I felt like, okay, Mass 2 will be built on that book, The Topography of Chance, the star-shaped anecdotal chain reaction of association chains. And that's very much how the agency is built, because it's not that I represent artists or that I have an artist list, but there's universes that I've built around me and that keep on coming back, and we interweave each other. And then Mass 3, where actually the DAF came in for the first time, was called Another Map to Nevada, and it was built on. Because then I felt like the Mass 1 was a cruising, Mass 2 was the topography of chance, and Mass 3 was the church, the third, the Mass, the actual Mass. And there's there's a lot of very sort of humorous dealing with religion in the Archivio, in all of the Fluxus movement. And there's a guy called Robert Delford Brown, and he founded the Church of the Exquisite Panic. And God is called Who, because who knows? And the whole event was built around this idea, and then I invited the DAF actually to come in for the first time. And they really ripped up the whole space. It was the most choral one. It started with a choral piece, and then the elevator opened, and there was a small child playing with miniature art pieces from the 20th century. A work by Urbano, and then the DAF were ripping off all this tape throughout the whole space, and like the whole space started like shaking. So it ended up being this really cacophonic moment.
And how do you plan it in advance and orchestrate the different works together? Do you see yourself as someone who likes to weave performances into one, or do you see it as a curatorial project, or is it just an invitation and then you step off again?
Could have been anything, was never nothing, and most certainly something. It's not for you, but I saw you looking at it. It's not for you, but you can try. Just remember to be kind and to listen to A small amount was all it took. One spray. Words leaking out in clouds and mist, spelling out what we always knew, that it's hard to combine when you don't know, but I do, so let's go. We take our clothes off to see what's underneath. It's exciting and scary, and we don't know, but we try to see something from another side, so we go around and around. We go around it to find a new hole to peek through. But there are small walls after each other, thin and breakable and tough as glass and flaming white like paper napkins or grinning teeth in a magazine. Biting away what's yours and mine, especially our time, down the drain like a garbage machine. Chomp, chomp, chomp. Eating big chews in a household where toilet paper and salt are the cornerstones of the foundation. So you better lick your wounds and shut them tight. We're up to fight, so lick your wounds and shut them tight. And those spooky goons may be us. Never be afraid. I'm here, and I'm never, ever leaving you.
Sorry, what was your question?
What did you learn about collaboration?
What did I learn about collaboration? When you trust, when you with yourself, then you know when it's right and when it's wrong. I think that's. I've a feeling when it's something is not working well or some collaboration will end up being difficult. Is often. I can often feel that in the very beginning, and then it's often a sign to move away from that. Or when I write to an artist who I would like to invite, if they cannot do it at a certain moment, or we were not coming together, that's always good and fine, and then it happens in the right moment. The last thing I did, the images of this will come up after this. So what happened after the Mass series at the Archivio, I proposed a year-long project for the curation of the public program of the Archivio Kunst for 2018, and the Senate of Berlin was funded it, and I did a festival for 3 days during Berlin Gallery Weekend, which moved away from the editions, the multiple, because supporting Columbus, they did a show of the multiple of the edition at the gallery, and I thought, okay, how do I deal with this edition, with the idea of the multiple? Okay, the multiple, of course, the democratization of art, the transmittal of information, but also I thought about it more as the multiplication, as a multiplication of personalities, as a simulation. It started as a lot of things, they started as like a joke, and then you have to actually make them, especially when you write proposals, when you then get the funding, you have to actually do the thing. So it was a joke when I said, okay, we do Mass 1 to 3, and then we do Mass X. We do a 3-day festival. We really blow it out of proportion, sort of thing. And it was, so it became like an idea of simulation, of the simulation of a festival, of the simulation of reality. So I invited the artists, as I always do. I always invite them, or not dogmatically so, but most of the time I invite them to work outside of their field. Because the performance agency has also become a space where people sort of can come home to. And I asked Maria Loboda, the Polish artist, to create a changing room for performers. I asked Kaspar Müller to make a kitchen. I asked Sibeli Cavalli-Bastos to be a waitress in there. There were different roles in that, so it became a simulation of reality. And yeah, the collaborations that work are the ones where both parties or all parties are looking for something that they can find within that. And that happens with my team, with my assistants, with my tech team, as well as the artists I work with.
So Performance X happened where? In the archive?
Performance X happened during Gallery Weekend in the courtyard of Soportico Lopez. And it was a 3-day festival, and actually it became just a festival of the quotidian because the stages were all of the quotidian. So during the day there would be like rehearsals and things moving around and things being cooked and things being transformed, and in the evening it was always breaking out. So Friday night there was a series of concerts. Saturday night there was the Mass, which also the DAF were involved again, who created an amazing moment of silence. I was dreaming of a moment of silence with the audience. And there was about 300 people there, and the whole audience went completely silent. And on the Sunday we had the Disney dinner, which was a piece by Robbie Fitzpatrick. It was called I Want More. He wanted to, it's again a play on this, the gallery dinner, this dinner, and we had singers perform Disney songs, young princesses longing for more. During this dinner, this 4-course meal, where Kenny Kittinzi, who runs Agora Collective, was created a 4-course meal according to those different Disney songs, and it was great joy.
And what have you been doing here in the last 2 days?
Here I was. Well, Yael invited me to come in here to work on the performance and. Work with the performance with the students, and it's been really, really great to be here with you guys and to work and to feedback some of the works, to develop them further, because then on Sunday we're going to have sort of an open space here for an audience. So yeah, we've created work actually together.
What is your work with activating the archive? And the work with performance agency, are they the same thing? Do they overlap?
They overlap a lot. It was just so curious that work that I want to do with the performance agency was so informed by Fluxus, and then this collaboration came about. But the performance agency is its own entity. I just curated the public program of the Paris Internationale, where I proposed a conversation piece, and there was a series of one-on-one conversations with the audience. Maria Loboda, who created this changing room for the festival, she created the changing room in the form of the Marie Antoinette skirt. And it was an oversized skirt that you can also, if you step up on a ladder inside, you can wear it. There'll be pictures of it later in this thing. And I invited a series of specialists, a Shaolin monk, a sex worker, the Brazilian ambassador, a child, a cryptocurrency specialist, Eric Wesley, all these different people to have an hour, 2 or 3 inside the skirt and have one-on-one conversations with the audience, as I believe very much in the transformational potential of a conversation, of a very small moment, sort of going back to nanopolitics.
You chose the member of the public, or it was
they could book appointments, or they could just walk in. And now for next year, we're going to expand the project to like a 2-month project in Berlin.
How long were the conversations?
About 15 to 20 minutes. I would sometimes block them. I really wanted to have a queue for people, especially for the speakers, so that there was a queue, and then I I was sort of sometimes would stop the conversations after 20 minutes, but no one ever came out of there. No one ever wanted to stop themselves.
So you invited the speakers in the skirt and different members of the audience. So each speaker spoke with maybe a few members.
Absolutely, yeah. So each speaker spoke to about 8, 10, 15 people.
And I imagine it wasn't recorded.
Some of it was recorded, actually because of on request of the speakers, and that is something that I would not repeat again. I think it's very nice that it's not recorded, that things are just happening. I'm not a fan of a lot of material.
I really like your idea of micropolitics in this way, and the idea of conversation and the importance we give to it. And it makes me think of several artworks or curatorial actions that have been nothing but trying to bring two people together, maybe who had a conversation 20 years ago and had the chance to have it again, and circumstances didn't allow them to, and sometimes just allowing that to happen, to meet each other face to face, has tremendous philosophic and value for even to just listen to what gets said. And it's a very beautiful format. And the difference with this is that with an audience, it's not two people you're inviting, you're only inviting one person. Did you ever consider a conversation where you would invite both sides?
Yeah, there were also overlaps within the conversationalists, and I would sometimes then invite them to come on board and have a conversation with someone, but I wanted it to be a space where people can come in and have sort of at random a conversation with something that they completely didn't expect to have. I mean, it was also quite, I have to say, only in hindsight I realized, it was quite radical to have like a 9-year-old child in a skirt talking to an audience one-on-one. I remember I went in with the child in the beginning, and the first one we did together, and then she was also like, okay, you can go now. So then I went outside, and then I was sending these guys, and then there was this one French guy like, yes, I would very much like to talk to the child. I was like, okay. Okay. So I was like standing next to the skirt. That's very loud now. Yeah, it was. And it was. We've gotten just. I actually don't know what happened inside, but from what happened when people came outside, they had just really incredible experiences in there, and there was. What this was about. There was a sex worker there. Yeah, there was a Shaolin monk. Yeah.
And what was the first work of performance agency?
Well, it was a story actually of something that kind of came together very quickly, but then had been very many years of building it up. The performance agency became a form of something that made sense at that very moment and became sort of a form, but I had worked with artists of all the different fields for many years and had done things like this in various iterations before. Thank you. Yeah, and then the last thing that I did before Paris was actually the boat ride, because I felt that the Archivio should travel into the city, and then what I did with the masses of moving an audience through a space, I took them on a ship. Everyone met at the Archivio Cons, and then we went on a ship, and Ed Atkins was narrating the ride. It moved away from a piece by Geoffrey Hendricks, who is one of the Fluxus artists, and he is a beautiful figure who did these very meditative, ritualistic performance pieces, and the work is oftentimes about the collecting of stones and the recollection of dreams. And he has one journal that he wrote. It's called Between 2 Points, and it describes his journey to the land of his ancestors, to Norway, through Diesen and Prinzendorf with Hermann Nietzsche, back to Asolo with Francesco Consuas, and then back to the States. And in the book he describes the ritualistic performance pieces that he makes, the collecting of stones, the recollection of dreams, and this journey that he's going through. So our journey was called Between Points, and it was a boat ride from the Archivio into the city where the performances were happening on the riverbed.
Is this work in the archive?
Yael. Yael. You can push it, but you can never control. You can arrange it and let it roll. You can push it, but you can never control. You can arrange it, then let it roll. Performance agency, creating another reality. Performing agency, simulating reality. Vergänglich, kein Material, just vanish. Egal, egal, vergänglich, kein Material, just vanish. Egal, egal, you can push it, but you can never control. You can arrange it, you have to let it roll. You can push it, but you can never control. You can arrange it, you have to let it roll. Yael hat eine Vision. Yael ist auf einer Mission. Sound und Movement, Movement und Sound. Yael legt die Schienen, get lost and then get found. Yael legt die Schienen und wir stehen am Gleis. Die Leitungen sind Turbinen und die Räder laufen heiß und die Räder schmatzen in der Performance-Maschine. Kannst es lenken, aber kannst es nicht kontrollieren. Kannst es dir wünschen, aber musst es nehmen, wie es ist. You can push it, but you can never control. You can arrange it, you have to let it roll. Du kleine Österreicherin, lebst in Berlin, powerful wie Benzin, Yael.
What kind of economic theory?
Well, I was spent my youth on stage mainly, and I was dancing and acting, and then I was supposed to go to acting school, but I didn't want to stay in Vienna, so I went to New York, and I always liked math very much. In the economic department at NYU, they had really incredible professors, and strange thing that I would go there and everything was always in the arts, but then I would go to school and there would be something very different to learn there. So I did it was economics, and I did a specialization in economic theory, more specializing on how structures work and why the rich are rich and the poor are poor, and how the system works. I very much enjoyed that. I still, in the work that I do with the agency too, and with the production circuits that we're building. I'm very interested in Zahnräder, how do you say? Gears, yeah. I'm interested in
You'll stay. You can stay.
Amra. You should see this if you want to get up to watch this.
You were saying?
What was I saying?
You're very interested in...
Oh yeah, in gears, yes. In gears, so still now with the agency, also within my team and things, I always try to find ways to close gaps, communication gaps, gaps in time lapses, make things more smooth, make them work sort of more easily.
So how many artists were part of Mass? How many different artists?
Many. Mass 3, Mass 1, 2, 3 was each about 10 to 12 people, and for Mass X we were about 30 people. And at between points now for the boat ride there was another 10 people. There's been it's become quite a large universe of collaborators.
And they all kind of flowed into one into the other.
Yeah, very naturally so. They flowed into one another. They sometimes collaboration exude.
each of the artists probably had when they were working with the archive structure, they probably had a different reaction to the archive. You said one was to read from something that existed, a kind of read performance. Maybe that. What were the other ways in which the archive got activated?
Well, in the collaboration with the Archivio, I don't so much. There's not really any time like a reactivation or like a nostalgic reenactment of works, but there's really there's sort of a questioning, a framework, an artist, a piece that I take, from which then I sort of propose a question to the artist. I give them those texts, where I invite them over. We look through, they find something. It's a very natural process, but it's very much sort of the starting point is always, let's say, a piece, a theme, a subject, a line within the Archivio, but then it is about a contemporary engagement with the material and never so much about a reenactment of anything.
So you invite them to spend time in the archive and to see the works and to
Absolutely, yeah.
Play them sometimes?
Sometimes play them, sometimes work with them. But again, it's most of the time it was more that I would choose something and then, give them the book, or we would have group meetings and we meet and we look at the different works, or there would be already sometimes a work that was very naturally fitting. The funny thing is with the Fluxus is, the whole movement is about awareness, is about looking at the small things, looking at the between the lines, looking about the connection of art and life and where those things collide. And it's a bit like a chameleon movement. So once you touch it, it sort of goes into your body too. And that's what sort of happens. So once you step into the space, and everyone is very invited, the DAF have been there to come by, to look at the Archivio, to come and look at what we do there also, because once you engage with that material, it is there's a lot of, the infection is very magical. So it's so once you get there, there's not a lot of questions that come about once you get into this material. The questions are answered naturally.
And there are 3,000 works, you said, but does the archive also have, is it also an archive of how they exhibited? Is there documentation? Are there things outside of artworks?
There's tons of letters, books, the whole entire library of Francesco Con's. This is the top of the stage. The entire library of Francesco Con's. There's tons of images, pictures of different exhibitions, works that they made, etc. So yes, so there's also the documentation around the works and the books.
And do you think do you have any examples of when you've worked not at the artwork being the starting point, but the exhibition document? Was that ever a starting point?
Not yet.
The way things were orchestrated?
Not yet, actually, really, because this is the one thing and this is also the beautiful thing with this was the boat ride, so there was a blind date on the side that the boat was riding by. It was an actual blind date. The artist invited two people that didn't know each other to have a blind date. This is a piece by Savio Mazzarol. It was the falling piece, so there would be people falling along the way, from stairs, from things. This is again going back to the Mass at the Archivio.
This was a month ago, right? The boat ride?
The boat ride was at the end of September, yes. This is now going back. The pictures are at random.
So what were you saying? You were saying this is important because the orchestration is still something...
Oh yes, sorry. I was saying that maybe the exhibition itself, or the exhibition making itself, yet has not come so much to my focus. First of all, because so much of the work are performance works within the archive. They're actually relics, documents, residues, pictures, music machines, pianos that are relics of performances. But also, I'm not an exhibition maker. I don't make exhibitions. I really work with performing arts. And a lot of the artists I work with are not performing artists, because I don't necessarily think that only performing artists can do performance art. But so this is also very much a collaboration with Stefania Palumbo and Gigiotto Del Vecchio, who you know, they bring in a lot of more the physical work, where I bring in sort of the atmosphere, the sound, the dance, the performance.
Okay. I'm just pushing it,
Yeah.
but no. This idea of orchestration is something I do connect with the Fluxus exhibition or coming together of different artists, and it's clearly something you've been sort of seeing a lot of just by having access and being within this archive so much. I was wondering how you distance yourself from it or follow it, or somehow it can't be not existent. There must be some register of how they put things together, which I've always loved about when they came together in groups.
I think the biggest registration or identification is the weaving, actually, the association chain, the sort of the natural development of things or of letting be things. And that's why I loved also about Jan's talk yesterday about the whole thing about the awareness and all of that, was that so much of, if you would want to make out a core point within, let's say now the Fluxus movement, there's a lot of different movements within the archive, but if you say that so much of the movement is about the awareness of the in-between, the awareness of the little thing, of the something that is overseen, overlooked, like sort of the instinctive thread of something, and
so it's that essence that you think,
which is the most what I've worked with too. What the boat ride was about, what the masses were about the in-between, about the awareness of the little thing. Yeah, this is the festival.
How do you describe gesture when you think about? I don't want to use the word performance and dance, but what words do you like to use around performance and movement?
I like the word gesture. I think at the moment maybe the word gesture would have like I don't know, maybe have the biggest longing for gesture, but more reality. I think where I'm home is somewhere really in the in-between, in the non-definable. I always dream, what I like most is when people come to what we're doing and then they go home and they were in some world, but they really didn't know how to describe it or what actually happened. Or I like the idea that they're going into like a beton machine, like a concrete mixing machine. So they go in and then it's like something's happening. They go outside and they're like, that was incredible, but I have no idea what just happened. That's where I'm home, and where I feel that has been also the response. We've had hundreds. For the festival where there were 2,000 people there, and we've had so many people come and such beautiful and positive responses. And I feel that is something that is missing also still, and that is something that the space that we are inhabiting or playing with or opening to engage people in.
Erlebnis Rasthof, Autobahn, Kirche, Erlaubnis Bahnhof, Autofahren bitte, Ereignis Rasthof, Mautbahn Kippe, Erlebnis Erzählung, Autozahnlücke, Ereignisfeld, Tauchen Klippe, Einwanderungsgesetz, Stauchenknüppel, Eierpfannkuchen, Tauschlippe, einmal hat Schuhe, Rauschsitte, Eilmeldung, Erdbeerschnitte, Autokorrektur, Lebensabschnitte, Autobahnkirche, Traumrasthof, Netzbrötchen, im Stau stehen doof, Einfallsrichtung, Erlebnisrasthof, Wirtschaftswachstum, Biobauernhof, Reinmachgläser, abbiegen bitte, exotische Gräser, sanfte Tritte, Tellerschnitte, Reifenventil, Stadtausritte, Austrophil, Erlebnisrasthof, Autobahn, Kirche, Rangierbahnhof, Lebenskrise, Erlebnisrasthof, Autobahn, Kirche, Erlaubnisbahnhof, Autofahren, bitte, Ereignisrasthof, Mautbahnkippe, Erlebniserzählung, Autozahnlücke, Ereignisfeld, Tauchklippe, ein Wanderungsgesetz, Staubknüppel, Eier, Pfannkuchen, Tauschlippe, einmal Handschuhe, Rauschsitte.
Thank you.